Sometimes the Torah's words are clear and unambiguous. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not worship anything other than God. But more often the Torah's commands invite questioning because it does not clearly define its terms. The famous words tzedek, tzedek tirdov, justice, justice you shall pursue, found at the beginning of Parshat Shoftim this week are a good example. They call out to us, inviting just such questioning. The repetition of the word tzedek, justice, in the verse suggests an emphatic command, one that should be followed with special vigor. But what is justice and how do we pursue it? When we study the original context of this mitzvah, we see that the verse is addressed to judges in a court of law. And it provides examples of proper conduct for a judge, not to favor one party over another in a case or not to accept bribes. And the reward for judging fairly, for pursuing justice in that way, is also mentioned. You will live and possess the land which God has promised you. But the application of this verse need not be limited to the establishment of an official system of justice. In fact, promising life and the inheriting of the Holy Land suggests that the Torah is not addressing only judges, but rather the entire people who will soon enter that land. But providing examples of how a judge should behave, the Torah also suggests some of the ways that we can, in our daily lives, pursue justice. One of those ways is through fairness. When making a ruling on a case, a judge is not to favor either the wealthy out of deference to their high standing, or the poor out of pity. A case must be decided on its merits, on the facts that are presented before the judge. And in daily life, we too have to engage in making judgments. But this is one of the most difficult commands to follow in our daily lives because each of us holds a bias towards those we like or we are close to, and a bias against those that we dislike or who are strangers to us. I can tell you that in my own work, I constantly struggle to see the value in everyone's ideas, regardless of who they are, and I'm constantly trying to be on guard against flawed ideas, even when they come from someone that I like and trust. In treating everyone with fairness, then, we also guard our own integrity. Justice means seeing the good or the not so good in everyone, regardless of how we feel about them, and making decisions based on merit instead of loyalty. The second boundary for pursuing justice is to refuse bribes. Now this seems obvious, especially in the case of judges. How could someone rule justly if one of the parties before them is actually paying them? But bribes can take many forms, and there are many ways to suggest that a particular outcome would be beneficial to the person making the decision, either now or in the future. The suggestion that the right decision is really obvious, or that we need to move on from this, or a private conversation between an advocate and the decision maker out of the hearing of other parties, or an invitation to a meal or other pleasantries that seems to be unconnected to the decision at hand can all subtly influence us in ways that we're not always conscious of. When we pursue a just outcome, we do so regardless of whether we will personally benefit from that outcome or even if we're going to suffer from it. Justice means separating the outcome for ourselves from the decisions we make on behalf of others. If each of us is able to make decisions impartially, working on behalf of the best ideas rather than on behalf of the relationship we have with those involved, and if we can do so without reference to how the decision will come back to either reward or haunt us, then we are pursuing tzedek. Being a judge is difficult, and applying the standards of the pursuit of justice for all of us is not easy. Perhaps the Torah phrases this command in terms of pursuing justice because these are ideals which we must constantly strive for, keeping them ever present as guiding principles. That suggests that tzedek, justice, is a value that requires us to review our own motives as often as we make decisions. From the East Brunswick Jewish Center, Shabbat Shalom.